Okay, so we have our list of ordered pairs, -3, 7, 5, 9, 2, -1, 2, 3. So the first question asks, is this a relation? What should the answer be to that question every time? Yes. Okay, a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. So if I give you a list of ordered pairs, which I am, when I ask you if it is a relation, the answer is always yes. You should not say no to that question. There'll be 2 of those on the quiz. And then to determine if it is a function, which values do I look at? The x. As long as all of the x values are different, yes, it's a function. If any of them repeat, no, it is not a function. So my x values are -3, 5, 2, and 2. Would that be a function? No, because I have one of those x values that has repeated. 2 is there twice. And then when I ask you to list the domain, which values are those? X, okay? So we're just going to list them. And again, remember, if it repeats, you can list it twice, but you don't have to. So what are my x values? -3, 5, and 2. Okay, and again, you could put 2 twice if you want to, but you do not have to. And then what about the range? What those would be, which values? Y. Okay, so that would be what? 7, 9, -1, and 3. When you make those lists for your domain and range, they do not have to be in a specific order. As long as you have all of the values listed, that's all that matters. Okay. Again, you will have a total of 8 questions like this. 4 just like this, and then another 4 with a different set of ordered pairs, just like this on the quiz.
When you're writing the domain and range, do you have to write the totals?
No. I mean, they hold a set, so it's the proper way, but am I going to count it off if you don't know? Everybody ready? Okay. Then you will have a section that has a graph, and you are asked to find the value of your function at certain x values, and also asked to find x when your y value is a certain number. So if you will take a look at that graph, you don't have to copy it down. 9 is asking you for the value of the function when x is -6. 10 is asking for the value of the function when x is 7. And 11 is asking for x when your function or your y value equals 4. So what is the value of my function when x is -6? -6, yeah. What is the value of my function when x is 7? -3. And then what is the value of x when your y is 4? -1. Okay, so you'll have a section like that. You'll be given a graph, and you'll be asked to find the value of your function.
What is like document on Canvas?
Yes. Anybody have any questions so far? Yep. Thank you. Is everybody good with those? Anybody have any questions? Okay. All right, now you are given 2 functions, f of x and g of x, and you're asked to evaluate. All right, so for 12, it's asking us to find the value of the function f when x is 5. So I'm going to take a look at that f function, and it is x squared plus 3. So what I do is I just take that 5, the number inside the parenthesis, and I put it in place of x. So we're going to say 5 squared plus 3. What's 5 squared? 25. And 25 plus 3 gives me a total value of 28. Right, 13 is wanting the value of the g function when x is -4. So again, the g function listed right above is 4 times x minus 5. So instead of x, I'm going to place that -4 that's in the parentheses there. What is 4 times -4? -16. And then -16 minus 5 gives me -21. And then 14 and 15 have multiple pieces, so you need to figure out each one, and then you can apply whatever it's asking you to do. So for example, 14, we want to find the value of our function f when x is 2. We want to find the value of our function g when x is -1, and then we'll add those two results together. So let's start with f of 2. So again, everywhere there is an x, I'm going to put in a 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 3 gives me 7. So that's the result of the first part. And then we're going to find g of -1. Again, g is 4 times my x value minus 5. That is going to be -4 minus 5, which gives me -9. And then I'm going to add those two together. What does 7 plus -9 give me? -2. Everybody okay with that one? All right, and then the last one, 15, not the last one, but in this section. We got to find f of 3, then we got to find f of -4, and then we've got to find g of 3. So I'm going to start with 3. So again, everywhere there's an x, I'm putting in a 3. X squared plus 3. That's going to give me 9 plus 3, which is not 11, 12. So that's going to go in place of f of 3 right here. That's what that is. Then we're going to do f of -4. So it is going to be -4 squared plus 3. -4 squared is 16. 16 plus 3 is 19. And that is going to go in the place of f of -4. What's in between those two, though, at the top? What sign is there? A negative. So it's going to be 12 minus that 19 that I got. And then I'm going to do the last part before I start to simplify. G of 3, forgot 4x minus 5. So we're going to go 4, but in place of x, we're putting in that 3 minus 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 5 is going to give me 7. So 7 goes at the bottom. So f of 3 was 12. F of -4 was 19. And g of 3 is 7. So what I'm going to do now is just finish this up. I'm going to do the top part. 12 minus 19 gives me -7. And -7 over 7 gives me what for my final answer? -1. So you'll be given your functions, and you're just asked to find the value of those functions when you have certain x values. So you just take them and plug them in and simplify them out. Okay, so far there are 8 questions like the first 4. Then you have, I think, 3 questions like the graph. You'll have 4 like these. And then the last part of our quiz, I just noticed those are not numbered correctly, are they? No, they are not. That's all right. Is going to be like the stuff that we did yesterday, give the domain of each function. Just like we did yesterday. So remember, there are 2 things that can't talk today. 2 things that give us exclusions. One being a fraction. Your domain will be everything with the exception of what makes that fraction's denominator turn to 0. I'm going to write them up here too because it's a little bit small. And then also, if you have a radical, your domain is going to be everything that keeps that value, the radicand, positive. And those are the only 2 stipulations that give me a restriction on my domain. If I do not have a fraction and I do not have a radical or an even radical at that, then my domain would be all real numbers. I'm just wrote those up there so that they're a little bit bigger, that's all. So I want you to figure out what the domain is for all three of those, please. This is just like what we did yesterday. There's a blank copy of it on Canvas, though. I'm going to start with 16. We're looking for fractions or radicals. Those are the only times we have restrictions on our domain. What do I have in number 16? A fraction. So if we remember from yesterday, what we're going to do is we need to figure out what makes that denominator turn to 0. So we're going to take that denominator. I don't care about the top part. I'm going to set it equal to 0, and I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to add my 1 over. That gives me x squared equals 1. Then we're going to take the square root, and we talked about this yesterday. We have to make sure we take into account both numbers. So what do I put in front of that 1? Plus or minus. Okay, so I cannot have positive 1 or negative 1. Everything else will work. So if you remember, hopefully, and if not, you can draw your little number line. It's going to be everything to the left. What would that first interval look like? Negative infinity to negative 1, okay, parentheses, and then in union with, what would that middle one look like? Negative 1 to 1. And then the last one would be, what's that? 1 to infinity, yeah. And remember with these, we're using parentheses because we can't equal 1 and negative 1. We can only approach them. Everybody okay with that one? All right, 17, what do I have there? A radical, and it is an even index radical. It is a square root, so that is going to give me some restrictions. So what we do is we take the stuff under the radical, the x minus 9. I need it to be either 0 or positive, so what inequality did we write? Greater than or equal to. Okay. We're going to solve. So I get x has to be greater than or equal to 9. What would that look like in interval notation? Bracket, and then 9 all the way to infinity. Again, if you need the number line to help you, you can always draw that. That's closed because of the equal to, greater than goes that way, and so that's where that interval notation comes from. It is a bracket because I can actually equal 9, okay, but you never put a bracket on infinities. Everybody okay with that one? So if it's a fraction, take your denominator, set it equal to 0, solve for x. It's everything except for those numbers. If it is a radical, you take that radical, you set it greater than or equal to 0, you solve, and that would be your domain. And then what about 18? Do I have a fraction? No. Do I have a radical? So are there any restrictions on my domain? So what would it be? Negative infinity to positive infinity, all real numbers. If my tablet will catch up with me.